Are you tired of the classic read, jot, and cram cycle? Do you find yourself overwhelmed by a vast ocean of books and digital resources? Let's be honest, studying can sometimes feel like an uphill climb, a marathon with no end in sight. But what if I told you there is a way to make this journey not just manageable, but exciting? Let me introduce you to your new academic ally, Bevinzey. This tool is like an AI-powered tutor ready to assist you around the clock. Think of it as an academic Swiss Army knife offering accurate and instant help with everything from homework to concept clarification and from essay reviews to presentation preparation. Hello, this is Dr. Dankwa, and I've spent several years exploring the ways technology can transform how we learn and teach, and in the next few minutes, I'll be unveiling a few of the amazing ways you can harness Bevinzey's power to supercharge your studies. No more last-minute cramming or information overload. It's time to embrace the future of learning with Bevinzey. So to navigate to the Bevinzey tool, what you want to do is go to bevinzey.com, and then once you're on the home page, go to services, and on the services page there are several modules. What you want to do is go to Bevinzey, and then you'll be brought to this sleek interface. So I'm going to demonstrate how the platform works. Just so you know, when you click on this icon, it's going to give you a history of what you've actually used the chat feature for, but right now it's blank, and so there's nothing there. But once you begin to do a few chat sessions, it will begin to be recorded here. So the first example of how you can really use the Bevinzey feature is Bevinzey is very good with assisting with homework help. So let's say you are a student, you are learning the quadratic equation. What you can do is in this text box area, you can simply type or put in the equation. So here we want to have the chat feature help us solve this quadratic equation. And so what you do is you can either type it or just copy and paste it in there. And then if you click enter, it's just going to give you another line to write. But if you really want to submit this so that you can get some feedback, what you want to do is click on this arrow and you will see the question, and then you give Bevinzey some time to actually solve the question. And so here we have the solution to the question really nicely. So it went through step by step, actually breaking it down, and then it gave you the answer at the end, and the answer is actually correct. So the powerful thing about the Bevinzey feature is it is very good at mathematical calculations, and so if you do have questions that are mathematical in nature, it can answer most of them. So I just want to draw your attention to this icon right here. It's really subtle, but when you click on it, it gives you some information that if you double click any of the responses or your questions, you can copy it directly. So just by double clicking, you see that we just copy that, so you can copy and paste this wherever you want to. Now what we can do is go back to the services and click on Bevinzey. If we click on this icon, we will see that we actually have one chat feature recorded. Now if you wanted to delete this, all you want to do is click on it and click the trash can icon, and that will delete it. Or you can simply click on the clear all, and it will clear all your records from here. Now, let's continue with the next example. The next example of how you can really use the Bevinzey feature is for concept clarification. So most of the time, the issue is grasping difficult concepts. So I'm just going to illustrate an example. And actually, let's create a new chat session. So just click Start New Chat, and that will give you a new interface. Now, you don't always need to create a new chat session. What you can do is simply just use the same chat for all your questions. It will go on and on and on. But I just wanted to demonstrate how you create a new one. So just click on Start a New Chat, and then when you're here, you can type in the question. So can you explain the theory of relativity in simple terms? And then you just click on the icon here to the right. Give it a few seconds or minutes to read the question and provide the answer. And so now we have the answer. So absolutely, it gives you the theory of relativity, and it tries to do that in really simple language. So the theory of relativity is actually composed of two parts: the special relativity theory and the general relativity theory. And then it goes on and explains it really nicely in simple terms so that you can really quickly assimilate what the concept is about. Now, the third example is Bevinzey is really helpful when it comes to essay drafting and review. So most of the time when you're required to write an essay, you first need to be able to structure it and then also sometimes review the essay. And so coming up with the outline sometimes is the issue, but this is something that the Bevinzey feature can help you with really expeditiously. So I'm just going to copy a question for which we want to develop an outline for. And in another video, I'm going to show you how you can really come up with really good prompts. The prompts is the questions you actually provide write to Chat Bevinzey for it to give you the answer. And in another session, I'll give you really good prompts on how you can really maximize the output from this Chat Bevinzey platform. But nonetheless, if you just ask a simple question like, can you help me outline an essay on the impacts of climate change? It will answer that with great detail as well. So in this example, or in this particular session, I'm not going to create a new chat session. I'm simply going to continue in the same interface so that you can see that you can keep asking many questions in the same chat session. All right, so we just got a response, and if you look at this is really, really nice, right? So it gives you a really good outline for an essay on the impacts of climate change. Your main header is the introduction, and then beneath that you have the background of climate change, you have the thesis statement. It gives you some idea of what the thesis statement should be. And so for this particular example, it says the impacts of climate change are significant and widespread, affecting the environment, economy, and human health worldwide. So that's the thesis statement is suggesting. You don't have to really go with this, but it's a good place to start. Then you have another heading, impacts on the environment, and then you have the subheadings or the questions you should think about. It gives you some thoughts that you need to consider when providing the output or content for that particular session. So you could expand this further. If you are not happy with this, you could simply say expand the outline to create a more thorough one, and then you just want to click on the icon right here. And Chat Bevinzey is really smart. It's just going to understand the context, and it's going to come up with an outline which may be more thorough than what you already have. So as you can tell, it came up with a much more thorough outline. So you have your main headings, you have your introduction, the definition of climate change, which should be under the introduction, and then you have a brief explanation of the causes, which was not actually in the first one, but maybe it will be captured under the background. And then here you have impact on the environment. Actually gives you more subsections than what we have here. So here you have 3, but for this section you have rising temperatures, and then some prompts under it. You have melting glaciers. So this is definitely more thoroughly understood the question or the comment to expand on it some more. So that's the third example. Now the fourth example of how you can actually really maximize the Chat Bevinzey feature is when it comes to source summarization. So when I say source summarization, and a good example would be, let's say you were asked to summarize the very popular book A Tale of Two Cities. So actually let's create a new chat session, and let me put in this question. So this is a very popular book, and Bevinzey has data on a lot of this popular literature. So what you can do is just put in the question. So the issue will be, maybe you're asked to read and summarize this particular book on A Tale of Two Cities, and you've read it or you didn't completely read it, but you have a good idea of what it is and you need to write a summary. All you can do is put in the question, click on this icon right here or the arrow to the right. Give it some time because it needs to synthesize the information it has to answer your question. And so long as the 3 dots are moving, you know it's actually thinking and it's coming up with a solution. So within a few seconds, the Chat Bevinzey model actually gave you a high-level summary of what the Tale of Two Cities is actually about. And if you needed to expand on this some more, you can have additional discourse with Chat Bevinzey, and then you can have a deeper understanding. So for example, you could say, tell me more about Lucy. And let's see what Chat Bevinzey says. So as you can tell, it's a really powerful AI tool, which is part of the entire suite. Or you can do so many other things in Bevinzey. You could summarize text to key points if you have your lecture notes or whatever material you're studying. You could also generate questions from the text, and there are many other things you can do in Bevinzey. But for this particular model, as you can tell, it's really almost limitless as to what you can gain from it if you know actually how to use it. So in subsequent videos, I'll be giving specific examples in a more detailed fashion, which will help you see real life cases on how you can maximize the Chat Bevinzey feature. So here Chat Bevinzey actually did answer the question and gave us some more information about Lucy. So you could go on and on and on in that chat session, and by interacting back and forth with the interface, you would actually have a deeper understanding of the book, and you have your summary, or you could copy all of this. So for example, you can just double click this and copy it, add it to your notes where you're keeping track of the information, and then synthesize all of this into a very good summary that you can write yourself. So another powerful example of using the Chat Bevinzey model is learning a new language. So let me actually create another chat session, and let's say you had to quickly practice some conversational skills in a new language, and I'm going to use this example right here. Can we have a conversation in French? Because I want to practice my language skills. So clearly he responded in French, and I actually need to brush up on my French, but you could go on and on and on and on with this particular session. So merci beaucoup. Yeah, so based on the response, I just said merci beaucoup, and of course, because I said thank you, it actually thought that I'd concluded the session. So it said, you are welcome. If you have any other questions or need help with anything else, please let me know. And I could actually say in English, how do you say the days of the week in French? So I actually gave the response. Of course, you have lundi, mardi, mercredi, jeudi, vendredi, samedi, and dimanche. And so you could go on and on and could do that also for any language. So just so you know, I want to practice my Spanish. Let's have a conversation in Spanish. So now ChatBevinzey responded in Spanish and is saying, I'm just going to translate this. It's saying, of course, I'm here to help you. How are you today? And you can go on and on. So that's another powerful way to actually make use of the ChatBevinzey feature. And that is to learn a new language or practice your conversation skills in different languages. So another way that you can actually benefit from the ChatBevinzey model is to use it when preparing for presentations. And similar to what you did for the outline of the essay, you can use it to prepare an outline for the presentation. So let me open another chat, and the reason I keep doing this is just to remind us all that you can always start a new chat, or you can just go endlessly with a single chat session. But now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 chat sessions, and if you wanted to delete all of them, we'll just click on this clear all. I'm not going to do that right now, but if you wanted to just delete one, like this one, there was nothing there, we can simply click on this, and then you have that option to proceed with deleting, which would be the check mark, or you could cancel that. So let's cancel that because we don't want to delete it at this point. But since we really want to delete it, I'm just going to click on it again and then click on the red icon and it's gone. All right, so let's start a new chat session, and I'm just going to put in this prompt, which is I need to prepare a presentation on quantum physics. Can you help me brainstorm some interesting points to discuss? Just click on the arrow. All right, so if I was going to do a presentation on quantum physics, this is actually a very good outline. Going to give some introduction to quantum physics, where you talk about the basic definition and the story of its invention. You discuss really some of the key scientists who were involved, like Max Planck, Einstein, Niels Bohr, etc. And then it's very important here to talk about the principle of superposition. So that's really good that ChatBevinzey was able to suggest that. And then you talk about things like the Schrodinger's effect or Schrodinger's cat, and so on and so forth. So this is a really good outline if you're going to be talking about quantum physics for a presentation. It gives you basically what would be your 7 or 8 main points, and then you have the sub points beneath it. And so you end up with maybe about 7 to 10 slides with your key points on each of those slides. And of course, this is not exhaustive. If you wanted to pursue a specific angle, you could also ask an additional question to expand on that. But I'm not going to go into too much detail on that right now. I will do a separate video on how you can actually go deeper and use this kind of information to actually develop your presentations, whether it's for presentations that you are being asked to do in class, or it's maybe you want actually going to present at a scientific conference. I mean, these are ways you can actually really maximize the ChatBevinzey feature. So another example of how you can use the ChatBevinzey feature is when it comes to time management and developing study plans. So sometimes it's really difficult to organize your study schedule and plans. This is an issue that ChatBevinzey can actually help you address. So let's start a new chat session, and in here I'm going to put hypothetical scenario. So I have 2 weeks to prepare for my biology exam, and it covers 3 chapters. Can you help me create a study plan? Now, you could be more specific with the chapters, maybe if it's meiosis and mitosis, or if you want to talk about amoeba, whatever it is. So you can put in either the topics or the chapters itself, and it'll be able to give you a more precise study plan. But nonetheless, let's just see what this generic question would provide in terms of the response. So this is a really nice study plan. So it tells you how you could organize your time. So for week 1, day 1 to 2, focus on chapter 1, and it gives you some suggestions. Now, of course, if you provide more specifics, then ChatBevinzey can give you more detailed, granular strategies and tactics that you can employ to actually either cover the material or be really better prepared for your exam or whatever the goal is that you actually are seeking to achieve. But I just wanted to demonstrate and give you some idea of what else you can do aside the ones that we've already shown. So it's very useful when it comes to time management or developing study plans. And if you had something specific, you could, for example, you could say, show me how to use the Pomodoro technique to accomplish the plan for week 1. So this is week 1, and it gave you a plan, and I'm just asking ChatBevinzey to show me how to use the Pomodoro technique. So just click on the arrow. All right, so it went ahead and it actually did illustrate it. So the Pomodoro technique is actually a time management method, which is based on 25-minute stretches of focused work broken by 5-minute intervals of break or 5-minute breaks. And so that's what it's showing here. So set a Pomodoro timer for 25 minutes. Then you spend that much time on that activity. And then when the timer rings, you take a 5-minute break, you stretch, you do some quick walk, you relax, and then you repeat the cycle. So that's what they just showed right here. And of course, once again, you can just copy all of this by double-clicking, double-click, and it will copy it, and then you can paste it wherever you want to paste it, and then flesh it out some more. So that's another example. Now this video is getting a little bit longer than anticipated, so I'm going to just give you one more example on how you can use the ChatBevinzey feature And for that, I'm just going to start a new chat session. Now, the reason sometimes it's good to start new chat session is maybe you want to go back and just review what you looked at or what you tried to ask maybe a few days ago, a few weeks ago. So for example, if you wanted to review the quadratic equation, we can simply click on this one, which was the first one. And as you can tell, it's still there. And we can simply either just copy it by double clicking or go through the content and get ready for the exam. And then let's say you wanted to review what happened with the quantum physics presentation outline. So it's still right there. So sometimes there's some benefit of starting a new chat session because it helps organize it a little bit better. But now let's do the last example. In the last example, you can actually utilize Bevinzey for mock interviews and conversations. So let's say you're going to prepare for a job or a university interview. What you can do is simply put in the question, can you conduct a mock interview for a software engineering position? So let's see what Bevinzey comes up with. So let's see, absolutely. Let's begin the mock interview. I'll be the interviewer and we will simulate a software engineering job interview. So can you begin by introducing yourself and describing your experience in software engineering? So this is always one of those questions that you get asked. So actually, let's just say as a software engineer. Now, by the way, I'm not a software engineer. I'm actually a chemical engineer, but not a software engineer. But I'm just going to give you some generic response. And then, of course, we'll see where it goes. But you can understand that you can have a real good practice session where Bevinzey can actually simulate the process, and then you can practice what your responses would be like. At least you can write it out and then later on practice by verbalizing it when you get a chance. So now it's asking what kind of programming language do you know. So you could say, Python, Ruby on Rails, JavaScript. You can just say Perl, PHP, R, and Bash. That's born again shell, right? So once you do this, you can, of course, submit it again. And let's see what Bevinzey says, and then we'll just conclude the session. Otherwise, this video is getting really, really long. The response is fantastic. Python and JavaScript are really in-demand skills. Can you tell me about the project? So it goes on, and this will go on and on, right? So what you can do is you can copy some of these questions. So for example, you could just copy this, double click to copy, paste it on your sheet where you're keeping the questions. And then, of course, you just copy all the questions or responses from Bevinzey, and that will give you some idea of questions that you should be able to answer in some form of fashion. So I just wanted to illustrate how you can really utilize the Bevinzey model for different scenarios, and I'll create separate videos on how you can actually use the Bevinzey model in a more in-depth fashion for each of those scenarios and many more in other videos to come. So by leveraging Bevinzey, what you can do is you can transform your learning experience into a more interactive, engaging, and productive process, just like you saw us do for the different scenarios. So let's embrace the future of learning today. Now, if you would like to try out this service, I'm going to put a link to a coupon code in the description, and I'll link it to the cards as well. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video tutorial.